Hey guys, I hope you've had a blessed day today and that you've taken time to spend with the Lord. You know, he goes out of his way to constantly speak to us and to be a part of our lives. He's done so much for us that we didn't deserve, and yet he's constantly there speaking to our hearts. And so I hope you've taken time to spend with him through reading his word and through praying and through worship. The daily reading today is Job chapters 31 through 33. And it's a pretty humbling book when you go through it. It's something that's pretty striking. And most people who know of the Bible, they know of Job and they know of the story. They know of his hardships. But what can we as Christians learn from this book? Well, in chapters 31 through 33, I think that you can see, specifically, let's start in 31, you can see that it highlights the importance of living a life of integrity and righteousness, even when we face hard times. It reminds us to stay true to our values and to trust in the Lord, because he sees that and he sees us and he's with us. He never forsakes us. And also, we were reminded that God's strength helps us to remain honest and upright. It's knowing that he is there for us and that he is going to be the one to vindicate us. In fact, he already has through Jesus. In chapters 32 through 33, Elihu comes on, and this is a young man, but even in his words, we can learn something. He was a young man who was trying to help his friend, but at the same time could have been taking one or two ways. But what he does is he suggests that suffering can be a way for God to continue to communicate and help us grow. He emphasized that God is just, he's merciful, and that using discipline is ultimately for our own good. I think that when you read those chapters and you see what he was trying to say to Job, it allows us to encourage others to see their hardships as opportunities for learning and growth rather than for punishment. It encourages us to trust that God's perfect justice and mercy will follow us, will be with us, and that even though his ways at times can be very difficult to understand, we know that we can trust him and that he really does want what's best for us. I think that when you read those last two chapters also, it helps us to advise people to pray for understanding and to be open to how God might be using these circumstances, our current circumstances, to teach them and to teach us, to support us to rely on God's character, to respond to suffering with faith, and to grow closer to him through those moments. Jesus told us that we would go through suffering. We're not going to be able to escape suffering because sin is in the world. But one thing that's beautiful is that when people who have Christ, who serve Jesus, who have the Father in their life, who have that relationship with the Lord, who have been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, when we face hardships, we don't face it alone. We have peace and we have hope and we have something we can cling to. But when you don't have the Lord in your life, you face all of those hardships and you don't have peace and you don't have hope and you don't have the strength that only comes from God. I hope that reminds you today that when you face hardships, because you will, when you face hardships, to cling to the Lord, to hold on to him. He is faithful and he is just. He is full of mercy and righteousness. His character is so much better than ours, and he can teach us so much. When we face hardships and suffering, that should draw us closer to him. He loves us. Facing hardships and suffering does not mean that he is a mean God. It means that there's consequence to sin in our lives. There's consequence to that very first sin that Adam and Eve had in the garden. But although there is consequence, we also recognize that we have the Father on our side. We have the King of Kings. We can cry out to him, and he gets us through those moments. I'm so thankful that I have Jesus with me, that through those hardships and those moments of suffering, that I can turn to him and have a peace that surpasses all understanding. I hope that you can take that and be encouraged to be reminded that he is with you always and he will never leave you or forsake you.